meet with you and finally share a little bit more about this book and why
I look
wrote
forward to it as well, and let's see how you can enlighten our viewers.
it. Okay.
I read in your book that you were going to call it a different name from what you eventually called it, Through the Golden Door.
Yes.
Why the decision to change the name this way?
Okay. So this happened about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was very much involved with my business and society work. And as a hobby, I wanted to do what I enjoyed, which was learning about astrophysics and metaphysics and all that. I was doing that on the side. And I was very fascinated about planetary civilizations. So, just in my free time, I wanted to start compiling my observations. I wanted to see how the planet was moving towards and how we were evolving. It was just my passion and my interest. So I came across the scale called the Kardashev scale by this astrophysicist, Nikolai Kardashev, and I was very fascinated by that. And I said, okay, let me research more about that and other things related to planetary scales and civilizations. At that time, I was just thinking about something that was non-fiction or just an article, and just compiling notes on that. When over the months that passed, I would say by 2014, almost every month there were like divine intervention, supernatural experiences. I mean, month after month, that whole year. And I realized that it was very clear that this scientific article, book, was much more than that, and I was supposed to, somehow a knowing came through, that I was supposed to interleave those supernatural experiences with that scientific book which I was writing, non-fiction book. And also a knowing came to me that I was supposed to add characters based on real people. So along the way it just flowed, and from that book title originally it was supposed to be Transit to Type 1, which is in the Kardashev scale, which talks about Type 0, Type 1, Type 2. So I said, okay, Transit to Type 1, we are at a Type 0 civilization that depends on fossil fuel, based on limitations, based on divisions. We are on a transit right now towards Type 1, which is a Type 1 civilization, does no longer depend on fossil fuel, which is based on limitations. We are moving towards limitless energy, and also breaking the divides, not just through the internet, which is now there already, which is why we are on a transition that's already sorted out. We have English as a common language, universal language, but also religious divides and divisions racially and everything else, entitlement. So Type 1 is when we break through all that. And also I saw, more than that, I saw it was not limitless energy, tapping onto limitless energy for our resources, but also within ourselves. So that was Transit to Type 1. With those supernatural visions, there was the vision of the Golden Door, which was so mind-blowing, and it was so apt. As you read through the book, you'll understand why I eventually decided to use the name of the Golden Door and change it, the title to Through the Golden Door. And throughout the book, till the end, I'm actually discovering the keys to open the Golden Door, the symbolic keys. So it was interesting that I had absolutely no intention of a golden door or discovering keys when I initially wrote this book. From a non-fiction, highly tech-heavy scientific book with lots of facts, it became a very informative story of a journey. That was never planned from the beginning. It evolved over time, which was very, very delightful and surprising to me, because it became far more interesting, far more impactful. And the message, there was an underlying message, which I didn't realize until closer to the end of the book, as I saw the chapters evolve. I've not mentioned this, but in the early part of my journey, there was a loud, audible voice. And the voice I felt was the voice of an angel. Could be the voice of God. And the message was, God is sending a lot of messages to a lot of people right now. And that was so clear a message to me that I could not forget the words. Every word, I could remember it, and I wrote it down. I did not realize that this message was really the key message for the whole book throughout the chapters. And it really was about how we are moving towards a more communal society, how the emphasis on unity, and how when I talk about everything from nature, from the intimacy with God, with societies, I had interlinked unity in every part of the story. So that was really interesting to me, that I only discovered that later on, that unity was the underlying message for readers.
How have the struggles that you have encountered with the book?
Okay. So there was this strong desire to connect at a higher level. So I was constantly wanting or desiring that connection with God, a really two-way connection, not just a monologue. And I was looking for that. I was always wanting that in my heart. So that was a struggle also for me, because there were certain things which I could not discuss with people who could not understand me completely, and the way I would look at things in the world, which I felt a bit uncomfortable with. A lot of things in the world I felt was not in line with what I felt was right.
So, but there's another interesting point. I notice your book is a kind of a multidisciplinary wonder. It has physics, poetry, mathematics, spirituality, and a whole lot of other things, all strung together. Now, how did you manage to connect the dots? I mean, you must have, this cannot be coming from my point of view, and it cannot be coming just from rational thought. I believe that there is something higher than that, and so we would like to hear more about how you came to connect the dots.
You know what was interesting? And the information that came through and how it connected together was just natural, and it just flowed into me. And sometimes I would look back in the sentence and I say, oh my God, how did I write this? And I was surprised myself. And as the thoughts would come in, it would make perfect sense. And suddenly I would talk about sunspots, I would link it with palmistry, and I would link it with the spiritual aspects and related to energies. It felt very natural to me. I did not refer to any writing style. I had not attended any writing course. I had not consulted any authors at that time when I was writing. And it was never a struggle. It was never a struggle. It was joyful. Through wealth, and I went through also a lot of losses. So I could see things in both perspectives over my life. I saw the business side. I was involved also advising government. I was involved in heading a society for mobile devices. All that gave me a good perspective on things. So I would say beyond just childhood, it was also my early adulthood that contributed, and my experiences, which led me to this point, which I could feel that through this book, I could write it in a way that it could relate to people of all levels. Because I've seen the ups and downs, from a lot of wealth to a lot of losses also, and also regaining. So I've seen it.
There's one particularly intense chapter, I think it's chapter 6 if I'm not wrong, where you talk about the stigmatic 0 point. Am I right? in
Yeah,
saying
yes,
that
the 0
that's-
point.
And
So I always knew about the 0 point. I talk about the geometry, Buckminster's, Fuller's vector equilibrium, about reaching the null point, and how that we create an empty theater, empty circus within ourselves, empty vessel, and then we release and open up for many possibilities to come in. I linked it with the stigmata because of that, again, supernatural, spiritual experience. And the way it felt, it was a painful, intensely painful emotion. No physical pain, but that intensely painful emotion, which was probably the most I've experienced in my lifetime. For a brief moment, and suddenly a very euphoric, very relieved, very it's like you're just coming out of drowning and you're saved. It's like I was just drowning and I was saved, and I was feeling, very, very happy and light. Yeah, light would be the word. I
It
felt
is awesome
very,
that you
very,
came through
very
that.
light. It felt it was very, very quick. And that's when I felt filled, just like spoken about in the equilibrium, the vector's equilibrium, that you feel you're coming out of nothing to something. And I felt filled, and I felt many possibilities were open to me. Many, many more. The limitations were broken. That's what I felt. And that's why I linked the stigmata to the 0 point. 0 point was more the geometric and the more scientific approach to it. And the stigmata is more the spiritual experience.
it was also very interesting to read about the quark slaughter.
Yes.
Could you talk a bit more about it?
The quark slaughter, my passion for astrophysics. I just related to that somehow, when the quarks are the minutest particles in the universe, and then the complete opposite, the quasars, the biggest illuminating energies. So I imagine that we're being reduced to the quarks, the smallest, minutest particles of ourselves. It's sort of a race towards that completion, then completion time. There's one interesting thing that's mentioned in the book by one of the characters. It's like a relay race. And the final runner is always one of the fastest and also the one with the most stamina. We are the final runners of this race. And we have to have speed, we have to have stamina. So this race towards completion of achieving that unity, the deep unity within us, within the societies, with God, the God-man oneness I talk about. Time is of essence because we see the upheavals in the world. It is quite catastrophic over the years, and time moves. If you probably notice that time is moving faster and faster. Even technology innovations is moving rapidly at much greater speed than before. So, which means that if technology is moving so fast, and with all these upheavals, spiritually we always need to be on par ahead. Otherwise, it could lead to detrimental effects. If we don't meet our spiritual level, is not able to monitor or manage the technology that's available to us. So it's a race, and I believe that those who are alive on earth today are the ones who would work together to achieve that.
Interesting that you mentioned it's a relay race. So would you say that this race is more of a collaborative than a competitive
That's why it's a
race?
relay race, because if it's not just a lonely run, one person. There are 4 members in this team. Okay, so it's a relay race, and we got to pass the baton, and then of course the final runner, which represents ourselves, it just symbolically represents ourselves now. We got to have the stamina, and we got to have the speed to move fast and implement this. No one is left out. Nobody, no one exception.
And therefore, what you're saying is every
Yeah.
member of this race is very important.
Of course, everybody's chosen to do different things, different levels, different. We all different threads in this tapestry,
Like the carpet behind you.
like the carpet behind me.
Thank you very
Beautiful-
much, Tahira.
Yeah, beautiful tapestry.
Thank
So-
you very much, Tahira. This has been an awesome interview,
Okay.
and I'm sure the
Thank
readers
you.
will be very enlightened and entertained at the same time by it. And
This book is supposed to be joyful and,
indeed,
of course,
and we look forward to
ultimately
your
joyful.
launch. and I hope there's a sequel behind it.
Definitely, there's a sequel. I've already started.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So, can you tell me just a little bit more before you end up this interview
About the sequel?
about why
No,
there
I
would
can't
be a
tell you.
why there would be a sequel?
Why there will be a sequel? Because it's not for me to decide. God has already planned it. The experiences already started happening a few months ago. And more scientific discoveries coming along with the spiritual experiences. So it's just something which I'm being led to continue. Very clear. Even the title, of course, is the Through the Golden Door Book 2, but the emphasis is going to be slightly different.
That is amazing. Thank you, and we look forward to the sequel as well. It's been an epiphany for us all. Thank you very much, Tahira.